Hi, everybody. My name's Damian. I'm an alcoholic. It's good to be here tonight. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little nervous driving up here. I don't know why. I don't always get nervous when I speak, but for whatever reason, I was like, oh shit. Um, Yeah, I like that reading. I picked that reading out of Dr. Bob's Nightmare because I like the 4 reasons of why he does this thing, right? And also, I had a good opportunity this last year to go to Founders Day in Akron, Ohio. And if you don't know what that is, so Alcoholics Anonymous's birthday is, they consider it the day Dr. Bob got sober. And Dr. Bob was from Akron, Ohio. And so it's like our Mecca, like I went there. I showed up a handful of days early. They do a big conference where like the last speaker, it was a college football stadium that was full of alcoholics. So it was pretty dope. And then the other speaker meetings were in a basketball arena, which was also always full. And I got to go to some of the places that Dr. Bob, that I heard in the stories and saw in the movies. And I got to go to the Mayflower Hotel where Bill Wilson. So if you guys don't know, Bill Wilson was he was thinking about drinking. And he was there on a trip for work. He'd only been sober for a handful of months, I think about 6 months at the time, and he was sitting in the foyer of the hotel, and he could hear people like making noise in the bar across the hallway, and it wasn't that far, right? It was like from here to the doors away, and there was a payphone that was sitting in one area, and there was 2 or 3 bars that were spread out in this little area, and he could hear them like drinking and having a good time, and he was like, man, I could go drink, and then something happened to him where he was just like, no, maybe I can make a phone call instead. And he got on that phone and he called a directory, and he was searching for another alcoholic to help. And that's the solution for Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what they discovered back then, that when all else fails, nothing will ensure our sobriety more than intensive work with another alcoholic. And that was, I've heard it called like the big bang of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was a thing that banged and spread out Alcoholics Anonymous all over the world. Instead of going into that bar, he found Dr. Bob, and then like the next day he met up with Dr. Bob, and it was the birth of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is super dope to me, right? When I share my story, I like to make sure that I know, most importantly, that I'm not trying to represent myself here. Right? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to represent the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm trying to represent God. I've heard that Alcoholics Anonymous meetings should be a pep rally for AA and for God, and because without Alcoholics Anonymous and without God, I wouldn't be standing here right now. I'd be sitting in a prison cell more than likely because death couldn't find me, and I was looking for it, but it couldn't find me, but I was going in and out of jail and in and out of prison from a really young age, and those were my consequences. And so more than likely, I wouldn't be dead. I'd just be locked in a prison cell, probably on 23-hour lockup, hating everything about who I am. So I love Alcoholics Anonymous more than I love anything else in this world. I love it more than I love my mom and dad. I love it more than I love my dog. I love it because it's given me this life, and it's also given my mom and dad me, and it's great to be out here. Like I live in Salt Lake, but I've been coming out to Utah County for quite a while, attend the meetings when I can. I love you guys' program out here. You guys work a solid program of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's good meetings out here that I feel the presence of God, and I feel that Dr. Bob experience in Akron, Ohio, right? So a little bit about my story, right? So I grew up in Salt Lake. I never really left. I started drinking and exploring with that kind of stuff pretty young. Probably not young compared to us, It was probably average drinking age, 13, We we don't do the 21 thing, and we jump right into it, and And just like anybody else, right? Usually in Alcoholics Anonymous, I was full of fear that I didn't know I was full of, and I felt ways that I didn't know that I even felt. Right? It was just my norm, and And looking back at it in hindsight, I realize how much fear that I had, and I know that because of the way that I tell my stories now. I went to a normal middle school where there was 7 classes. In between each class, you'd go to your locker, you'd throw your books from one class in the locker, and then you grab your new ones and go to the next class. So I happened to have, in the 7th grade, I happened to have the cutest girl in the school. Her locker was right above mine. She was cute, and I was super into her. And I'd go home, and I'd shut the door and lock it, and put a towel under the floor, and I'd look in the mirror, and I'd pretend like I'm talking to her. I was like, "What's up?" I'm Damian, and I can dance, So I grew up in the 90s, so hip hop was coming of age, right? So it was like MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice and Ice Baby. And I used to I go into my sister's room, and she had a full mirror, and I'd break dance in the blast the stereo, and I'd do the worm, and I'd practice talking to this girl, and for a year, I saw her 7 times a day, 5 days a week, and I never said one word to her. And I don't know if you guys can relate, but it's like I had this when she wasn't around, I was cool, hip hop, and I'd even sometimes throw my clothes on backwards, and I just. But when she appeared, this wall of fear penetrated me, and I couldn't see past it, and I'd freeze, and I'd fucking my stomach would get all tight, and my heart would get all tight, and my brain would go blank, and then she'd walk away, and I'd be like, damn, And then at the school dances, right? So it was always the same thing there. It's I'm going to show her how I dance, because they used to form these circles, and somebody jump in the middle of the circle and they break dance, and I'd been practicing, so I was like, I'm gonna do the break dance, and again, we probably had 6, 7, 8 dances throughout the year. I didn't jump in that circle one time, but something magical happened around that time. I ended up at a party. This was before drugs and alcohol were part of the parties, right? It was usually just a bunch of kids gathered around playing board games, maybe spin the bottle, and me and a couple of my friends, we stole some mini bottles from my mom and dad, and we drank them before we got to that party, and so this is the way that I remember it. It's probably not the way that it happened. I go walking into that party, and the music's blasting, and there's people just gathered together, and as soon as the doors open, it was like a gust of wind pushed them open, and then the music stopped, and everybody looked over at me, and there's there's Damian, and I go walking in, and the music starts to back up, and there's a line forms for across the room, and on the other side of the room, there's this other girl that I thought was kind of cute, and so I go beat bopping up to her, and I slide up to her, and I'm like, "What's up?" And that wall of fear that I'd always had was gone, and fast forward a bunch of years, right? I became an alcoholic. I was probably in the progressive part of it still, and I was dating this girl. We were together for 6 years, and she hated it when I drank. She said that I go through these stages, from buzz to drunk, and she says my body would do these things, and my voice would do these things, and one of them was that she said when I walked, after a couple beers, I was super relaxed, cool, whatever, and the more that I had, a couple more drinks and a couple more drinks, she said I'd do a thing with my hands where my hands would I'd rest them like this, and the more that I drank, the higher they got. And then the higher they got, the worse my talking went too, right? So I was slurring my words. And she says by the end of the night, my hands would be up here. And she called it the Tyrannosaurus Rex. She says I'd do this thing where I'd walk up. And so rewind back to that party, when the doors blew open and the line parted and I walked up and I was like, "What's up?" More than likely I walked up to her doing the Tyrannosaurus Rex, But something happened, right? Something that was more magical than probably anything that happened to me at that point. It took away that fear. It didn't matter if I was doing the Tyrannosaurus Rex or not. What mattered is I didn't care. And I fell in love with alcohol from that point on. That wasn't my first drunk, but that was the moment that I fell in love with alcohol. And I realized at that point that I could do that as often as I could to get rid of that fear that lived inside of me. And so I did, but I wasn't doing it all the time. I was in middle school, but also around that age, I went off the deep end. I started getting in a lot of trouble. I got involved with gangs, got kicked out of school for the first time when I was in the 8th grade. I brought a gun to school. I started going to juvenile detention centers. By the time I was 16 years old, I was doing meth and cocaine and smoking crack and drinking. I was setting fire to everything that I touched. I was hurting everybody that came into my life. I was a destructive force in this universe, and people were afraid of me. People didn't want to be around me, and I was just like, leave me alone. People were trying to fix me. People were trying to change me. My poor mom and dad were like, they had no idea what was going on with me. None of my siblings were the way I was. And they'd have people come over and try to get through to me. They'd have religious people come give me blessings, and throw holy water on me, or they'd have therapists have me go sit down with therapists. They'd have friends come over and talk to me, and nothing worked. I didn't know nothing. I didn't know something was wrong with me. And by the time I'm 18 years old, I'm still burning, still setting fire to everything I'm touched. The criminal charges are getting more and more and more. I'm getting arrested all the time, in and out of juvenile detention centers, on house arrest, and I quit going to school, and I picked up my first felony charges as an adult right after I turned 18. Not too long after that, I'm standing in front of a judge, and I got an attorney, and he's trying to get me to not go to prison. He's like, man, let's just give this kid a chance. He's just a kid. Obviously something's wrong with him. He's telling the judge this. He's like, obviously something's wrong with him. Normal people don't act this way. And he goes, let's get him into a program. And then the prosecutor gets up and he's like, Damian's been a threat to our society for a really long time. Since he was 13 years old, he's been a threat to our society. And he goes on and lists some things that I'd done. And then the judge looks at me and he goes, Damian, this is a really hard decision for me to have to make. He goes, because of how young you are. He goes, but I have to no other choice. I agree with the prosecutor. You are a threat to our society. And so I sentenced you to so many years in the Utah State Prison. And when he said that, like I want to throw up, and I felt dizzy, but I was taught, like when I feel those feelings, I don't show those feelings, right? Chin up, shoulders back, don't show no emotions, right? And as I'm putting my shoulders back and my chin up, the cops are coming behind me and they're handcuffing me. And as they're handcuffing me, I hear somebody screaming in the courtroom behind me, and I don't know what's going on. Somebody's yelling out, crying. Out loud, and I look over my shoulder, and it's my poor mom. She told me later on after I got sober, she told me that was the worst day of her life. Not the worst day of her life anymore, but anyway, I go to prison, and at 19 years old, and I get there, and I have a plan. While I'm there, I'm not going back. I'm going to make some changes. This is the last time. I'm sitting in a 23-hour lockup place where I only get to come out sometimes every other day for 15 minutes, and it gives me a lot of time to think, and the thoughts that are coming through my head, they're good, they're constructive, right? I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to change my life. I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to be somebody. I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to make my mom and dad proud. Unfortunately, I didn't know that I had the disease of alcoholism sitting on my back that hadn't fully come alive yet. And it prevented me from doing those things. If I was able to do that, if I was able to make those decisions and stick to those decisions, I would have paroled when I paroled, and I would have went on my merry way, and I would have bought a house and a home and got married and da-da-da-da-da. I wouldn't be sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous right now. I would have told you how I did it, how I changed. how I got strong will, But instead, what happened is I get out, and it doesn't take me too long before I start doing some of the same things again. It doesn't take me too long before I'm hanging out with some of the same people again. And it doesn't take me too long before I'm sitting in a similar prison cell again, thinking, man, how'd I get back here? I was committed. You could have hooked me up to a lie detector test, and you could have asked me, Damian, will you ever come back here again? And I would have said, absolutely not. And it would have passed with flying colors, right? That's how much I meant it. I did not like that place, I was young and cute when I went in there. and I heard stories, It was but I didn't want to be an inmate, I've always craved my freedom. And I'm the type of person that has a hard time taking accountability for things. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to that, right? Like if I can find a way to not take accountability for something, I do it every single time, and that's how I was back then. And the way that I didn't take accountability back then was like stupid, superstitious things. So there's some superstitions that go on in the prisons, right? One of them is if you write your name on the wall. You guys know what happens if you write your name on the wall in a jail or a prison? Yeah, you go back to see it. And so I wrote my name on the wall, like Damian, on in between two pieces of cinder block. And so when I'm sitting back in there, I'm like, I know why I'm back here. It's because I wrote my name on the wall, like, damn it, I should have known better. I was warned. And so that's the way that I avoid accountability. And I did that my whole life, up until I got sober. I'd even get arrested and say I had this shirt on when I got arrested. I'd be like, man, that's because I had my bad luck shirt on. and it turned out I had a whole wardrobe of bad luck clothes. Yeah, it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with this. There's a dude that used to go to a lot of the meetings that I used to go to in Salt Lake. He's passed away. He was an old timer. His name is Carl, and he would introduce himself. He said, my name's Carl. I'm a recovering thinker. Thinking is my problem, and drinking is the solution to my problem. And he says that we needed to find an adequate substitute to our thinking. And that substitute was alcohol, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. All my life, my thinking had been destroying me, and I get paralyzed in the fear, make dumb decisions, put myself in risky situations, going in and out, drinking and using drugs over and over and over again, thinking that's the solution and that's the better way. And it just wasn't. My thinking has been my problem for a really long time. And anyway, so in my 20s, I'm in and out of jail and in and out of prison, and I can't seem to escape that cycle for nothing. When I'm out on the streets, I'm usually blasted, running around, doing the most, hurting the most people, and hurting myself. And it gets so dark, and I end up in a place where I'm just like every day when I wake up, if I wake up, I just hate who I am. I hate me. I hate me more than I hate anybody else, right? And I think about how much I hate myself all the time. And I think about how it'd be a lot better just to be dead in this world. And I think about that all the time. I think about that around the clock. And I hate this world, and I want out, but I don't know how to just stick the gun to my head. Instead, I go out in the world and I create as much damage in the world as I can. And I let the world be a reflection of my pain, and I'm hitting everything I can hit, and I'm destroying everything that I can destroy, and I'm hurting everybody that comes into my life, and my poor mom and dad and the people that love me, they're getting the worst of it. Innocent victims. They didn't deserve what I put them through. And towards the end of my 20s, I'm going hard. I'm drinking, doing drugs, and one day I go out with some of my cousins. Right, we go out, we barbecue at one of their homes, and we start drinking around 11 p.m. or not p.m. a.m. and we barbecue and have a good time. And later that night, we go to the bar, and we're just gonna go there. It's karaoke night at that bar. We pull up in a limousine. Just having a good time. And That's usually how it would go. That's how it would start. Like, go to the bar, have a good time, enjoy it, dance, get rid of that wall of fear, talk to the girls, do whatever, freedom, that's what I considered it. And and I blacked out while I was at the bar. I normally wasn't like a blackout drinker, but every once in a while I'd have these blackouts. This time I blacked out, and I still don't remember what happened during the blackout. I know what happened during the blackout because people told me. What happened was I got into a fight with somebody. I was dancing with his wife or girlfriend, and he got mad at me, and we got into it. He punched me. I went down, and this is where I came out of the blackout. I was getting up off the ground, and I didn't know who had hit me. I didn't know why somebody had hit me. But the bouncer, he grabbed a hold of me, and he's like, "You gotta go. We gotta go. You can't be here anymore." I was getting escorted out of the bar. Right, it wasn't my first time getting escorted out of a bar, but usually I knew why, And my friends, they're my friends and my family and the people I was hanging out with, they were pretty much sick of me. They were done with it. Like that became kind of normal for me to get us kicked out of bars. They go there to have a fun time, and I go there to fight. And that's not really why I'd go there, but it would happen. And around this time, and it had been going on for a handful of years, if I got too drunk or had too much alcohol in my system, I started craving some kind of other substances, right, like cocaine or meth, to bring myself down a little bit, because I'd start to lose control. You know what I mean? Like I'd start to lose control, and the meth and the cocaine would bring me down to where I felt like I could control myself a little bit better. And so I'd do a little bit of cocaine and meth, and then I'd be okay. And I could party on for the rest of the night, or sometimes into the next 5 or 8 days. And this night, like my phone had died, and I was walking down the street, and I was pissed off because I'd just gotten kicked out of this bar. The people in the bar that were with me, they didn't want to leave with me. So I'm just walking. And I walk into somebody's driveway, and I jump into their car, and I take their car. And I'm driving around looking for the white stuff or the clear stuff, and I'm looking for a way to come down. And because my phone was dead, I couldn't call nobody. And so I was showing up at people's doors, knocking on their doors like, "Hey," nobody was home, right? Nobody was home. And I'm driving on like the west side of Salt Lake, like the Kearns, West Valley area, West Jordan, and I'm cruising down Bangor Highway, and Bangor Highway back then had red lights. Now it's more like a freeway, but I stopped at a red light, and I needed that dope so bad that I was so impatient that I burned through the red light. And as soon as I burned through the red light, I looked in my rear view, and I got hit, red and blue lights. There was undercover cops sitting on the other end of the intersection. And they turned on their lights, and I looked behind me, and I'm thinking, "Oh no!" And I'm in like a 1986 Ford Escort, and I'm like, "Shit!" So I'm like, "I better turn this into a Ferrari." And so I start burning through gears, and I take them on this little chase, and I eventually got stopped inside this cul-de-sac. They ran me with their patrol cars, and they made it so the car couldn't go front, back, or side to side. And then they drew their guns on me. And they were all outside of their car, and their guns were on me. And I'm sitting in this little Escort, right, like with my hands on the steering wheel, thinking, "Oh no, here we go again. Going back to prison for a long time this time." And then I had like this little epiphany moment. And it was like, I know how to get out of this, Damian. You already hate this world. Let's just make them shoot you. Right? And so as quick as the thought came, I started yelling back at these cops, "Screw you, shoot me." And I stuck my hand in the waistband of my pants, pretending like I had a gun, and I did a jerking motion like that. And I was hoping that they were just going to fill me full of bullets, right, and end it for me there. And as I'm doing that, I feel something hit me from behind, and it goes, right? And I have this feeling. And if the feeling could talk, it would be like, finally, this is over with. Finally, no more going to jail, no more going to prison, no more letting down mom and dad. Finally, no more being me. I finally found a way to get out of this fucked up world. And this is happening quick. And just as quick as it's happening, I realized that maybe I ain't been shot. I'm getting pulled out of the car. And as I'm getting pulled out of the car, I get hit again. And that's probably about the point when I realized that I ain't getting shot, that I didn't get shot, that I got tased. And the reason why I know I got tased is because my whole body hurt. It was the second time there was no peaceful feeling. It was just like, everything hurt. My toenails hurt. And I go to jail, and I'm looking at spending a good portion of the next rest of my life in prison, right? When I was on that chase, the cop that was throwing because they popped my tires, and the cop that went out to go throw the spikes, I was coming up on him as he was throwing the spike strips. And instead of swerving to the right and missing the spike strips that way, I swerved to the left, and I hit him. And then they blocked me into the neighborhoods with their patrol cars. And instead of jumping out and running or surrendering or turning around, I turned the Ford Escort into a tank, and I went as fast as I could, and I pushed them out of my way. And so this is all over the news. I got a $500,000 bill, and I'm looking at not getting out for a really long time. At this point, I'm not sure what my belief system is in God. I don't know if I figured it out till a handful of years after I got sober. But probably around the time that I was doing my first third step, it was when I was in treatment, somebody told me to review my life in hindsight and look for moments that maybe God showed up for you. And I thought about this moment, right? And I thought about a lot of moments. I gave those cops every reason to shoot me that night. I've had friends, people that I've known, people that I've kicked it with, that have gotten shot by the police for a lot less than that. And I gave them every reason to shoot me that night, and it would have been justified. And then I'm sitting in jail, and I write to my judge, and I'm like, hey, please let me out. I'm like, I'll come up with the bail, reduce my bail. I was like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home and spend one last Christmas with my mom and dad. I'll do everything that I need to do. I'll go to treatment. I'll do anything I need to do. And I wasn't looking for a way out of the charges. I was looking for a way out of jail to spend one last Christmas with my mom and dad. And the judge reduced my bail. I had somebody put up part of their business, and mom and dad put up some of their money, and I get out, and I had every desire, because this was around December, every desire just to roll into the holidays and kick it with them and be present. And somewhere along the line, I show up at my cousin's house, and they're watching football. I go walking in there, and I'm tense, and I'm thinking, oh, man, you're going to prison, Damian. Man, you're just going to let everybody down again. And I'm going through this piece of shit story that I've always said to myself over and over and over again, and it's making my fists like this, and it's making me tense, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm going to throw up, and I'm just walking around like this all the time, just on edge. And everybody at the party, they're drinking, they're having a good time, they're chilling, they're watching football like normal people do, and they don't know that I'm dying of alcoholism inside of me. I'm dying of alcoholism without the alcohol. I'm restless, irritable, and discontent to the umpteenth degree, and I don't know what to do about it because I don't got no program. I don't know Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know anything about being sober. And I go into the kitchen, and I open the fridge, and it's stacked full of beers. And I look around, nobody's watching. I fill my pockets full of beers, and I run downstairs, and I go into the bathroom, and my hands loosen a little bit. I feel a little bit better. That's what alcohol turned into for me, right? It became a necessity, right? I needed alcohol. Like it gave me that feeling that I couldn't feel without it. And I made all these promises to everybody, mom, dad, myself, the judge, everybody, that it was going to be different. And everybody in that house knew what kind of alcoholic I was, right? And that's why I was doing it in the bathroom. And so anyway, I end up on probation. What happened was the cops ended up messing up when they filed charges, and I ended up on probation instead of in prison. Another God moment, right? What are the chances of that? You know? And then I end up violating my probation, right? What they were hoping for. And I go in and see my PO, and he looks at me and he's like, "How you been, Damian?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing good, man." I'm like, well, except for I got arrested last weekend, and the only reason why I told him is because I thought he already knew. The cops, when they arrested me, they're like, "We're calling your PO," and so I told him, I got arrested, and he looked at me, and he goes, like, it was weird. Like his whole demeanor changed. He was all happy when he first seen me, and then when I told him that I got arrested, he went inside himself. His facial expressions changed, his posture changed, everything just went like, oh man. And he looked at me, he goes, "Damian," he goes, "what am I gonna do with you?" And I remember thinking, you're gonna do the same thing with me that anybody with any kind of authority has ever done with me. You're going to lock me up. You're going to punish me. You're going to consequence me. And then God showed up in my life, right? And God did something for me that that I still don't think it was me. God said something. He said, "I need help." And that was the first time ever in my life I admitted I needed help. And it turned out super ironic that it was to a cop, because I hated cops. And he looked at me, he goes, "Well, have you ever been to treatment before?" And I said, "No, I hadn't," right? And we talked about it for a little bit, and he goes, "Damian," he goes, "I'm going to let you leave here tonight." He goes, "I'm not going to make you any promises. I'm not telling you you're not going to go to prison for this." Right? God's showing up in my life again. And I'm not even aware of it in the moments, right? "I'm going to let you leave here tonight. I'm going to let you go into that world," right? And he goes, "I want you to get into a program." And so I leave. And I get put on this list to get into this treatment center. It takes me like 6 months to get into this treatment center. And on October 31st of 2008, I'm out partying with some of my cousins, and I'm drinking a little bit, and I'm doing a little bit of cocaine, and I'm not doing the most, right? I'm just doing a little bit. Next day I wake up and I think, I can't keep doing this. If I keep doing this, there's no way I'm going to make it into that treatment center. See, I had to call that treatment center every single day to keep my name on the list. And for once in my life, I was doing something every single day for the betterment of me. And again, I don't think that's me. I think that was God showing up, working through me. Because on December something, so my sobriety date's November 1st of 2008. On December, I think it was December 27th, I got a call and they told me they had a bed for me. And so I roll up there and I land in that seat. And I get that feeling again, like when I thought I got shot. Finally, maybe this could be over with. Finally, no more letting down mom and dad. Finally, no more waking up hating who I am. Maybe no more going to prison. Maybe no more going to jail. And at that treatment center, I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. They had 6 meetings there a week. They took us to 2 outside ones. And one of the requirements was that I had to have a sponsor before I graduated. And I got this sponsor, little dude. He was funny. He's from Rose Park, and he's little, and he talks kind of squeaky. but he's got like the energy of a pit bull. And I would call him because I brought Damian into Alcoholics Anonymous. I brought Damian into that rehab. And Damian was a mess, right? And I'd call him and I'd be like, I'm going to kill so-and-so, I'm going to beat up this person, or this person's doing this, or this person's doing that. And he'd be like, well, let's go to Denny's, you know? And we go to Denny's like at 9 or 10 o'clock at night and stay there till 3 o'clock in the morning. And at one time he told me, he's like, man, if you still feel this way tomorrow, he goes, we'll go over there tomorrow and we'll both beat him up. And like I said, he's a little dude, so I'm like, probably just getting in the way, dude. But this little dude saved my life. He invited me over his house all the time. I'd go over there, I'd work the steps with him. He made me part of his little family. He made me feel welcome. He made me feel safe. And so when it was time to do my fifth step with him, I was reading through my fourth step, and I skipped the things, the things you don't want to tell nobody, the weird stuff, yeah, the stuff I did on meth. I skipped that stuff. And then the echoes of like people in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings would start running through my head. And it was like, hey, my name's Steve, I'm an alcoholic, and I came off a relapse, and the reason why I relapsed is because I didn't do an honest fourth and fifth step. I left out my secrets. And I think, oh man, I don't want that to be me. And so I stopped, and I said, dude, I got to go back a little bit. And I told him about the tweaker stuff. And he didn't shame me. He didn't make me feel bad. He hasn't told anybody about him. Instead, some of it was like, yeah, me too, dude. Right? That's one of the things that I love most about Alcoholics Anonymous is like the me toos. Doesn't matter what we've been through, right? There's somebody in here that can say me too to whatever one of our stories. And I love that about Alcoholics Anonymous. When I was in treatment, it was my first time in treatment, and so I didn't really understand the dynamic, and like there was a time where everybody was doing group therapy, and this girl had just got done processing some pretty intimate, traumatic stuff that had happened to her when she was younger, and some horrible stuff had happened to her. And I'm sitting in the corner there. The therapist looked up at me, and he caught my tear rolling down my eye, the one drizzle that I'm fighting with everything I can to not roll down, right? I'm like, don't go out. And there it goes, and he catches it, and he's like, Damian, you want to tell me what's going on? And I remember thinking, and I think I told him, I says, if I could go back in time and I could save her from going through what she went through, I'd do anything to stop it. And it was the first time in my life that I remember feeling like empathy for somebody like that, and this kind of reminds me of the Grinch. You remember when the Grinch realizes he's got a heart? And he looks down and he sees it beating. He's like, whoa, what the heck is that, And because I don't know if I wanted that. That's not what I got sober for, right? I got sober to quit going to prison and quit hurting mom and dad. And I found myself feeling empathy, right? That was a spiritual experience for me. And in that moment, I realized, like, I want to be able to help out alcoholics in my life. That's what I want to do. And so as I get it, when I'm out of treatment and I'm going through the steps, I can't wait to get to that 12th step. I can't wait to start sponsoring people. I can't wait to have people sitting on my couch, taking them through this book and showing them how to live a better life. And but I'm still going through the process, right? I'm making amends. I'm fighting for my life some days, right? I did the no dating thing for like 2.5 weeks. I was going to do it for a year. I heard somebody say one time, they said, nobody knows that if that actually works in Alcoholics Anonymous because nobody's actually ever done it. But I gave it an honest attempt, And I end up dating this girl that lives in my sober living, and I'm just like, oh, this is so perfect. We're so meant to be. Thank you, God. We both got similar pains, and we're both sober, and she lives down in the basement. I could sneak in through a window, and, and I start thinking that she's messing around with the other dudes in the sober living. And the Damian that I brought into Alcoholics Anonymous shows up to that. right? And one night, I'm outside the sober living, right? And this is probably really how it happened, but imagine like it's raining and it's dark, and and I'm sitting out front with my shirt off screaming, "Come outside!" And I'm trying to kick Steve's ass. Steve's a dude I was in treatment with that I think's messing around with her, and I'm yelling, "Come outside!" And I realized, man, if I end up fighting this dude, I'm going to go back to prison. And I jump into my car, and I start driving down the streets, and I start crying like these big crocodile tears. And I'm thinking, I don't know how to make it through this. I don't know how to make it through this pain. I've never made it through a pain like this before, and I'm hurting. Every part of me's hurting, right? And my history is that I don't make it through these things. My history is that I get drunk, I get high, and then I get arrested when I'm feeling that kind of pain. And I'm punching my steering wheel as hard as I can punch it, right? And I'm crying these real tears. And I pull up to my sister's house, and then I hear those people in meetings again in my head. Pray. And this might have been the first real prayer that I said when I got sober. I get to my sister's house and I hit my knees and I'm crying and I go, "God, please, please, God, please help me get through this. Please, God, please, I don't know how to do this. God, please, 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 please." And I go to bed that night and I woke up sober. Right? It's not like all the pain went away, but I woke up sober. And I didn't destroy my life because my heart hurt. That was something brand new for me. Profound, right? And then I'm continuing going through the steps, right? I get to my 9th step. I remember at one point I'm at the TV store, and I'm like trying to get me a new TV. Because I had like the old box ones. I got sober when the box TVs were still kind of going out of style. And I'm looking at these flat screens and I'm checking them out and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get this one or that one. And then I remembered like one of the times when I was on parole, I broke into this store. And, we call them crash jobs. We'd go in there and break out the front window and run in there and grab what we could and leave. But we had our eye on a certain TV that time. Flat screen TVs were brand new. They were worth like $20,000 for one TV at that time. I ran in there, I took this TV, and then I dipped, and I was thinking, I can't buy a TV. I still owe a TV. And so I got on my computer and I Googled this place, and I found out who the CEO was at the time, and they had his email listed, and so I emailed him. And I was like, "Hey man, my name's Damian. I'd like to set up a meeting to come meet with you. I did something that harmed your organization a while back, and I want to know if I could come talk to you about it." He emailed me back. He's like, "Yeah, sure, come on in." And I told him, I sat down with him, and I was like, "Man, I stole the TV." And he looked at me, and he's like, "Why are you doing this?" And I told him, I said, "I've been dying of this thing called alcoholism, and I've been hurting people in this world." And I have this friend, he says that we used to sell our soul a nickel and a dime at a time, and the way that we get it back is a nickel and a dime at a time, and I'm trying to get my soul back. And he was just shocked, and he gives me this. So I had people caution me not to do this amends, but there's a part in the big book where it says we trust infinite God than our finite selves. And one thing that my sponsor used to say to me when I'd balk on a step and be like, "Man, I'm not sure if I want to do that. Like that sounds a little too hard or too risky, or it takes too much vulnerability." And my sponsor will say, "Well, Damian, how free do you want to be?" And I remember sitting in that prison, right, back when it was in Draper, and I remember looking out my little prison window, and my mom and dad lived in Bluffdale, and so that's the city that the prison used to be in, and I could almost see where their house was at through that prison window, and that didn't make me feel close to home at all. That made me feel like I was a million miles even further from it, because I had these walls and these bricks and these fences that was keeping me from going there. Right? And then I remembered being in a hotel in Salt Lake, high on meth, doing tweaker stuff, Not that kind of tweaker stuff, like the, you guys are sick. Like the other tweaker stuff that's going to end me up in federal prison, and being so high that I couldn't leave my room. And so when he asked me, Damian, how free do you want to be? I think, man, I want to be as free as I can be. I want to be as free as I can be, and I'm willing to do whatever I got to do to get there. And if that means risking my freedom to get there, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to risk my freedom. And so that's what I did. I set out and I started making amends. And because I was in so much trouble and did so much bad things in this world, I was making some risky amends, right? I made amends to people that I shot at. I made amends to people that I stabbed. I made amends to people that I physically hurt pretty bad. I made amends for crimes that I committed. I made amends to mom and dad for stealing money out of their purse and doing things that they wasn't even sure that I was doing, because I wanted to be free. The chains of addiction had me wrapped. It was destroying everything good inside of me. It was sucking everything good out of me. Every moral, every ounce of piece of integrity that I had, I was losing it. I was compromising it all the time when I was in my addiction, and I didn't want to be that person. Right, and one of the best senses of freedom that I get to feel today is knowing when I got integrity. Right, that's a feeling of freedom. How free do you want to be? I want to walk around with my head up high, not because that's what I was taught to do, shoulders back, chin up, but because that's how I feel. Because I feel good about the person that I am. I feel good about the way that I'm acting in this world. I feel good that my mom and dad aren't scared for me anymore. And that's what I do. I went out there and I hit the ground running, and then I started sponsoring a bunch of people, and I hit Salt Lake, and I did the most, right? And I haven't looked back. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I fight for it. I fight for it like my life depends upon it, just as much today as it did back then, because it still depends on it. I can't get too comfortable doing nothing or doing half measures or not doing much because I've gotten to places in my sobriety where my alcoholism, not the drinking and the drugs come back, but the thinking comes back. And some of my behaviors come back, and my character defects start to dominate again, and I start pushing people around, and I start bullying, and I start doing things that aren't in integrity. And I find myself stuck in a place where I'm back to a place where I just want to kill myself again. And you know what reaches down and grabs me again is the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. It can reach me wherever I'm at, whatever hell I've put myself in. It goes in there and it finds me. And it finds me in these meetings, and it finds me through your voices, and it finds me through your stories, and it finds me through speaker tapes, and it finds me because me too, right? Y'all got a story that I got, and you guys pull me out of my hell, and I get back into the program. I make some amends, I make right some of my wrongs, and before I know it, I'm living in integrity again. And I'm so glad, because Alcoholics Anonymous didn't just save my life that one time, right? It wasn't just that time that I went to treatment. And so it saved my life a handful of times. So back during COVID, COVID hit 2020, right? The beginning of the year. One of my best friends, I was his best man at his wedding. He goes on his honeymoon, and him and his wife relapse. They live in their addiction for 3 years. He ends up getting in a car accident. Died in the car accident and killed some lady. Man, I was so broken over that, and it's not like I've lost so many people in Alcoholics Anonymous, but it was one of my best friends, And then COVID happens, and the world shuts down. And I got this dude, he comes over to my house one morning, knocking on my door out of the blue, and he's like, Damian, he's like, can I hang out here for a little bit? And he goes, I got an appointment to get into this detox later this afternoon. And I'm like, yeah, man, come on in. Because that's what I did. Earlier on in my sobriety, I made my house a safe place for people to come. People knew that Damian's house is a place where I can go and I don't got to worry about addiction being on my back. It's a place of freedom, and it's a place of safety, and it's a place of sobriety. And so he showed up there, and as we're sitting there hanging out, I get this call on my phone early that morning, and I look, and it's my mom. My mom don't call me early in the morning, right? So I panically answer it, and hey, Mom. And she can't talk. I can tell that she's crying, but I can't hear what she's trying to tell me. And she gets it out. Benjamin just shot himself. Benjamin's my little brother. And I tell her, hold on, Mom. I go, I'm gonna put on my shoes and I'm gonna jump in the car and I'm gonna drive over there. I'll be over there in like 15, 20 minutes. And I get off the phone with her and I go walk into my room to put on my shoes, and there's this chair in my way and I grab it and I throw it across the wall in the room as hard as I can throw it, And I get to the end of the hallway and I punch the wall as hard as I can punch it. And I grab my shoes and I'm walking towards the door, and this dude that's sitting on my couch grabs me and puts his arms around me, and I fall to the ground and I start bawling. And he goes, Damian, man, I love you so much, man. I love you so much, and I'm so sorry this is happening. And like that dude wasn't supposed to be at my house that morning. He just showed up when I got the worst phone call I've ever had. And then I get in my car, and I go driving down the street. I head into my mom and dad's house, and then I hear this little voice, this little squeaky voice come over my Bluetooth. What's up, dude? And that's my little squeaky sponsor, And for some reason, somehow I called him, and I tell him, man, my brother just shot himself. And I stay on the phone with them all the way to mom and dad's house. And I get there. And there's cops and paramedics there, and my mom and dad and my little brother's son. And I go inside and I go in the room, and my brother's body's still there with the pistol in his hand. And I'm fucking so full of fear. And I'm so full of pain. And I'm so full of anger. But you guys taught me how to live. You guys told me to show up when times get hard, good times and bad. And so not the Damian that came into Alcoholics Anonymous, went to my parents' house that day. The person that Alcoholics Anonymous changed me into showed up at my parents' house. And I was able to call both my sisters and tell them that our little brother just died. Right? And I got to grab his son. He didn't know what was going on. And I walked him outside to his mom. And I got to do some of those things so my mom and dad didn't have to. Before Alcoholics Anonymous, I was a runner. I ran from my pain. I ran from my fear. I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to be anywhere around it. And I'd explode into this world. And I'd destroy anything that came in my way, And instead, what you guys turned me into was somebody that shows up. And I showed up. And there was a moment where we're all hanging out downstairs and we're talking. And my dad's not there. I'm like, well, where's Dad? And I go looking for him. And he's in my brother's room cleaning up. And I stop him. I go, Dad, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this, Dad. We'll hire somebody. We'll have somebody come in and do this. And he looked at me crying, and he goes, Damian, he goes, I gotta do this. He goes, I gotta do this. That's my son. And I remember thinking, well, I'm staying here with you because you're my dad. That's what Alcoholics Anonymous turned me into. That's what integrity is, Even when I want to run, I show up, And we were able to mourn my brother, right? And they weren't worried about what Damian was doing, because the old me, they would have had to worry about what Damian was doing. They wouldn't have been able to mourn my brother properly. And we got through it, and we survived it, and we're stronger now. And I show up in my relationships, not just in that way, in all kinds of ways. My mom and dad are my best friends today. I hang out with them. They're the homies. For real. For real. Like I love my mom and dad, and I show them that I love it on a continuous basis. That's how much Alcoholics Anonymous has changed me. That's that power of God. That's why when I say here, I'm not here to try to represent myself. I'm here to try to represent the power of God and the power of Alcoholics Anonymous and what it can do. And what it can do is it can do that. It can make me show up when I don't want to show up. It can make me be bigger and stronger than I could have ever imagined. It can make me fucking live through the hard times and the good times. Man, this program's dope. I'm so grateful that it found me because I wasn't looking for this program. It found me sitting in that treatment center lost. And it used your voices to pull me out and lift me up. And it showed me how to do this. And it showed me, the most importantly, that I got to give that back. That's why I like that reading of Dr. Bob, right? I do this because I feel a responsibility to do this. I sponsor people because I have a responsibility. I owe a debt that I'll never be able to repay. I should be sitting in a penitentiary right now, and instead I'm sitting in Provo, Utah, talking to you guys. I'm free. I'm free. When my sponsor says, how free do you want to be? I want to be as free as I can, and that's where the fuck I am today. You know, I show the fuck up, and I'm so grateful. And I still got this God that I got to carry, that carries me, and sometimes I got to be, like, I just keep God in my presence all the time. Because without God, I'm nothing. Without Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm nothing. So anyway, I went over a little bit, and I'm sorry for that, but that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, and everyone that helped.